Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we discuss introducing the new Form I-9, what you need to know. We're going to begin shortly. We'll discuss our agenda. I'll introduce myself and my colleague, Dave Basham, and then we'll go through our presentation, and we'll conclude with questions and answers. Bear with us for a moment. Thank you. Thank you again for this. We just needed to take a brief pause. Thank you again for tuning in today. We appreciate you joining us at this webinar today. My name is Sathab Abbo. I am Corporate Immigration Counsel and Senior Product Director at I-9 Advantage. My role and responsibilities at our corporation is to ensure that our electronic I-9 software mirrors the USCIS regulations and employment eligibility form. I work to bring a thorough understanding of immigration law to our clients and to our products. I also stay atop of the frequently changing rules and regulations that are issued by United States Citizenship and Immigration Services. And finally, I like to guide clients with compliance matters and methods to completely and properly complete the Form I-9. I'd like to introduce my colleague, Dave Basham. He's been with the Department of Homeland Security for over 7 years as a senior analyst. He conducts briefings on Form I-9 and E-Verify. Dave serves as U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services point of contact for Immigration and Customs Enforcement, also known as ICE, and more specifically the Worksite Enforcement Unit. The USCIS is a government agency, as you all know, that oversees lawful immigration to the United States. USCIS will secure America's promise as a nation of immigrants by providing accurate and useful information to customers, granting immigration and citizenship benefits. It promotes awareness and understanding of citizenship and ensures the integrity of the immigration system. Today we're going to talk briefly about the new Form I-9 and what you as employers need to know. We will cover the background of the Form I-9, the proper ways to complete the Form I-9, storage and retention of the form. We'll share some resources that are valuable for you, and then finally we'll take some time to answer questions that you would like to share with us. I would like to let everyone know that you will be receiving a copy of the webinar and the audio recording in roughly 24 to 48 hours. That will come from our company. And again, we're going to allocate some time at the end of the webinar to answer your questions. If there are any outstanding questions that we're unable to answer due to time constraints, we will follow up with you and get those answers to you in the near future. So with that, I'm going to pass over the controls to Dave.
Okay, I certainly appreciate that, and let me go back one there. Hey, I appreciate I-9 Advantage having me back on for this most important session, being the revised I-9, and I'm going to jump right into this right off the bat. So let's cover a couple things before we get started, okay? Yes, the new revised I-9, it went live on November 14th, and you can use this revised I-9 coupled with the previous version I-9, and I'm going to say previous version because now that this new revised out, yes, it's the previous version. The previous version I-9 can still be used all the way up to the close of business on January 21st. So you can still use a combination of this newly revised I-9 and the previous version all the way up to the 21st of January. When you wake up on the 22nd of January of next year, you have to start using this revised I-9. Any of the previous versions of the I-9 at that point, you would be out of compliance. A couple other just notes, if you will. We are currently working on putting together the revised M274, which we titled that the guidance for employers on completing the I-9. That is not on our I-9 Central website yet. If you're not familiar with I-9 Central, it's our website. It's your one-stop shop for everything with the I-9. You will see that link at the end of this session on our resource page. Additionally, since we're updating that M274, we're also updating those multimedia resources, being the vignettes. And when I say the vignettes, I like to call them the lunchback sessions. You'll be able to go on I-9 Central as you have in the past, and you can click on, it's like a 2 or 3 minute clip. Hey, how did Dave say we complete section 1? You can click on that. The same thing for section 2 and section 3. Short 2-3 minute clips, and our I-9 webinar on demand that is being updated as well. One of the things that we're getting a lot of questions on right off the bat, and I want to go ahead and just touch on this very quickly. For those that are familiar with our I-9 Central, you may have seen some items that we've put under there, what we call what's new, and it surrounds receipts that are used for EADs, those employment authorization documents. You will see in the instructions of the I-9, as it was in the previous version, that receipts showing that you've applied for an initial grant of employment authorization or for renewal of your expiring, and here's the key words, or for the renewal of your expiring or expired employment authorization are not acceptable. So as we've said in the past, you can't accept a receipt that somebody shows you for the renewal of that EAD. But if you go to I-9 Central, you will see on there that we have listed that there will be a new rule effective January 17th where you will be able to accept those receipts under those circumstances. We will be putting more information out. Your best key is to follow any information that I-9 Advantage puts out to you and follow us on our I-9 Central site for more information. Right off the bat, I always like to talk about the Office of Special Counsel. Why? Because you'll hear me refer to them throughout today's session as OSC. You see they're from the Department of Justice, Civil Rights Division. We're kind of tied at the hip. Why? Because the Verification Division where I work, which is the home to the I-9 and E-Verify, we do all the messaging. We put the policies together. Everything is done on the I-9 and E-Verify right there in the Verification Division, but it's OSC that handles or enforces those anti-discrimination provisions of the INA. They do a lot of presentations with us. We do one joint webinar with them each month on employee rights. Why do we show this slide? I really want to draw your attention as employers down toward the bottom. And you see that employers may also contact OSC. You see that 1-800 number. Why do I point that out? If you feel heading into today's session, or maybe all along you've wondered, hey, are we treading on that area of discrimination? Although, once again, you can always contact I-9 Advantage and speak with them about this. But you have a resource too, you being the Office of Special Counsel, that you can call and ask that question too. And you can remain anonymous. Yes, I say anonymous because when you dial that number, they pick up the phone. They don't want to know your name, your company, your NAICS code, city, state, anything. Simply ask your question. They would rather you help you on the front side than, unfortunately, have to meet you in the courtroom. And if they do, more than likely, they're not going to be sitting at your table. So let's look at, I'm going to cover the new I-9, the revised I-9. I have put in a couple other slides on some areas that we still like to stress because we still get a lot of questions from those that are seasoned I-9 professionals that we can't assume that individuals know. We're still getting some of those questions. So let's just discuss those real quick. As you see in the first comment there, the revision of the I-9 came out the 14th of November. You can either use this revised form or the previous form, as I stated, all the way through close of business, January 21st. Remember, you don't have to have an I-9 for those employees that you hired on or before November 6, 1986. Because this is a new revised I-9 that came out, you do not have to complete a new I-9 on everyone. Okay, so let me just tell you that right off the bat. Look at that last comment. We're starting to receive more and more questions in regards to remote hires. Companies that may be in one location and they hire an individual in another state. Let's say that Troy is in Indianapolis and he offers me a job to be the sales rep in the Virginia, DC area. As you see that last comment there, Troy's company can delegate the authority to complete the I-9 to a responsible agent. However, Troy's company is going to retain the liability for any errors that are conducted by that individual that fills out the I-9 on his behalf. So Troy can call and offer me a job, and I accept it, but Troy can say, hey, Dave, we're not going to fly you here to Indianapolis to fill out all your onboarding paperwork. We're going to send that packet to, maybe he has a friend, a family member. Maybe he's going to send it to an attorney, a notary, a librarian, another company, whomever, to complete Section 2 when I show up, to complete Section 2 of that I-9 on his behalf. Just make sure that that company or that individual that you're having complete Section 2 on your behalf, which includes the instructions and the guidance that they provide that employee on completion of the I-9, make sure they know what they're doing. If you don't, you're really hanging yourself out to win there, okay? All right, we're going to look at the revised I-9. Let's discuss that real quick, just some of the basic overall items on the I-9. Yes, it's still 2 pages. We have increased the instructions from 6 pages to 15. Don't fret. I know you're thinking, what? We've taken a lot of information and thought into exactly why we were going to increase those instructions from 6 pages to 15, which came from other agencies that have a hand in the I-9 process, which came from the public. There were many comments of, hey, we wish that there was some additional information, just put it in the instructions so we didn't have to constantly refer to the M274. But those instructions are still with the I-9. When you print off the I-9, those instructions won't print with the I-9. You have to click a separate button, which is those instructions, and those 15 pages would be printed. You still have to provide all 15 pages of instructions to the individual when they're completing the I-9. Now, once again, I know you're thinking, what? I've got to run 15 pages of instructions each time I have a new hire? Now, what's to say when you have an individual complete the I-9 and you provide that one individual with the 15 pages of instructions, they have the I-9, those 2 pages they're going to fill out, and the list of acceptable documents. After they're done filling that out, that you don't ask that employee, hey, do you want to keep these list of instructions and that list of acceptable documents? I'm confident the majority won't. In that case, just pull those back and hold them to marry up with the next individual that needs to complete the I-9. Now, let me tell you one of the biggest things that we really want to discuss here in regards to this new revised I-9. You can still fill out the I-9 pen to paper, which probably is a very high percentage of individuals that I still talk to today. Although many are starting to move and trend toward an electronic I-9. But this form, although you can still print it off and fill it out pen to paper, is also available in a fillable form. Fillable. Do not confuse a fillable form with an electronic form. The fillable form that we provide on our I-9 Central site, where you go and you can run that off, the fillable form is where you can have the employee sit down and fill out their portions in Section 1. And then you would have them print it off, and they would still pick up that pen and sign and date. You, the employer, could complete Section 2 in that fillable form right there on the computer. Then you would have to print it off and you sign and date Section 2. But it is not an electronic form by any means, okay? We're going to talk here today about really for those of you that are still completing the pen to paper Form I-9 and the fillable form, okay? So just hang tight here for a second as we move forward through each. Here's the list of acceptable documents. It's on the revised I-9. I will tell you there were no new documents added, nor were there any taken off of this list. You still need to show the individual this list of acceptable documents when you get to the point where you're completing Section 2, and you simply ask them to provide a List A document, any one of those from List A, or a combination of a B and C document. let's look at each one of the blocks right off the bat with this revised I-9. You see right here, not many changes. You still have the first name, last name, middle initial. You see all those helper text there, those blue circles with the question mark? Those are for those of you that plan to use the fillable form, that if the individual has a question about that particular block, they can hit that helper text, which a block will come up and give them a lot of helpful information. We still have our customer care number. If there's still a question, where you can pick up the phone, dial our customer care number. You will see that number here toward the end. Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. your time zone. Why do I say your time zone? Because our call centers are in Buffalo, New York, Washington, D.C., Lincoln, Nebraska, and Los Angeles. But those helper texts will really help the employee, and you'll see those helper texts there in page 2, section 2 for you, the employer, as well. But look at the first line. There's still the last name, first name, middle initial. Look at that next block. There is a slight change on that. In the previous version of the I-9, it just said other names used, if any. Now it says other last names used, if any. Here's another change to this revised I-9 versus the previous version. You know, there are blocks such as the other names used. That was an optional block to be filled out by the employee. Just as the employee's email address and the telephone number is an optional block. The Social Security number was an optional field block for them to fill out, caveat, unless you're enrolled in E-Verify. And if an individual didn't want to put anything in there, they could just leave it blank and move on. But under the instructions now, it tells you that they must put NA in those blocks. There's only one block, which is the Social Security number, that you don't have to put NA if they don't put anything in there. But the other blocks, either something needs to be put in that block or they need to put NA. We want to stress that. Why? Because our sister agency, ICE, which is Immigration Customs Enforcement, which, by the way, it's our sister agency, ICE, that does the audits on the I-9. They've made it a point to make sure that we stress that those blocks, you must put NA if there's nothing put in that specific in those blocks. Let's go to the second line, still the address, street number, and name. There is one change in that block on this version. Right here, you can put a P.O. box. On previous versions, you couldn't. But under this version, yes, you can put a P.O. box, although it's preferred to put the street number and name. The apartment number, if applicable, once again, if there's not an apartment number, they need to put NA. City or town, state, look into the state block. There's that drop-down button. You're only going to see that drop-down button if you're filling out the I-9 on the fillable form. Obviously, if you still are printing off the I-9, filling it out pen to paper, you're not going to see all these little blue areas with a question mark, these helper texts, or a button there where you can hit a drop-down. Then the zip code. Let's go to the third line, date of birth. Still the 2-digit month, 2-digit day, 4-digit year. The helper text just shows individuals, the format that they should put that in. One of the great things about this fillable form of the I-9, when the employee gets done filling out their sections here in section 1, and when they go down to the bottom and you are ready for them to go ahead and click, stating they're finished with that page, if they haven't filled out things correctly, maybe in the correct format, such as this date of birth block, you see the format there? Let's say that they put just 09 for September and maybe 22 for meaning they were born September 22nd. But they didn't put the year. When they go down to click on that, it's not going to allow you to go to the second page of the I-9. It's going to say there is an error, where you would then scroll up and see where that error is. And in this example, it would be, hey, you didn't put the 4-digit year that they were born in. So they would have to correct that. So you see, it's really helping both the employee and you, the employer, with ensuring that the information that they are putting in there is in the correct format. The Social Security number field, once again, it's still an optional field unless you're enrolled in E-Verify. If they don't put anything in there, that is a block that they do not have to put NA in. You may ask, well, Dave, why is that? Why is that the only block? Well, for those of you that are enrolled in E-Verify, for those of you that are not, you may not quite be able to understand exactly what I'm trying to explain here because you're not enrolled or use E-Verify. But if you're enrolled in E-Verify, you know you may run up against a circumstance where an individual that you've hired, they can provide a List A or B and C document, but they don't have their Social Security number yet. Maybe they just came into our country and applied for a Social Security number and they don't have that number yet. As we state in our E-Verify MOU, as long as they can provide you that List A or B and C document, you know, they're already working for you. You just need to follow up with that employee so when they do receive their Social Security number, you would have them come back and write their Social Security number in that block, at which time you would run them through E-Verify. So you see why you're not putting in, we don't have you put NA. It's really geared for those of you that are enrolled in E-Verify. There's still the employee's email address and the telephone number. Once again, those are optional fields. If they are not completed, you need to put NA in there. Look at the bottom there. Section 1, that first page of the I-9 still has those subsections. This is the first subsection, the employee information. That next subsection we're about to talk about is the employee attestation area. Those two subsections are completed by the employee. Your only responsibility, and I'm going to come back to this in a minute, so remember this, your only responsibility as the employer is to ensure that the employee completely and correctly fills out those subsections in Section 1. You're not validating any information there, meaning if they put their Social Security number there, once they're done, you don't ask them, hey, I need to see your Social Security number to validate that that in fact is your Social Security number. Where you're validating documents is based on the documents they provide you there in Section 2. Now, I know many people, and I always get this in a live session, I get hands raised, hold on, Dave, I need their Social Security number for payroll purposes. Just like I need their driver's license because they're going to drive a company vehicle. Don't confuse the need for various documents that are outside of E-Verify. Don't mix those needs and requirements for the policies and procedures of the I-9. Let's go ahead and look at that next subsection, which is the employee attestation. Once again, the employee completes this. There's still those 4 blocks, 1, 2, 3, or 4. But what are some of the changes? Once again, for those of you that will be completing this and having your employee and you complete this on the fillable form, you see there's all kinds of those helper texts there. But look under number 4, the alien authorized to work. And you see the numbers underneath there, 1, 2, or 3. That is a change. Now they can provide their alien registration number / USCIS number or Form I-94 admission number or the foreign passport number. It's one or the other or the other. If an employee is filling this out, let's say that they check off number 3 as it is on the example here. Then you see to the right, there's a line there where they're going to put their number, their alien registration number, the USCIS number. You see there, they're going to put that number, and then they're going to list over to the right, which is it, the alien registration number or USCIS number. You see number 4, I kind of touched on that a while ago. Let's say there's a scenario where an individual puts an X under number 4, and they provide their alien registration number or USCIS number. Once they enter that information in there, in that line, and once they go out of that block, NA will automatically be populated under number 2 and 3 right there, the Form I-94 admission or the foreign passport number. So you see how if you're filling it out with the fillable form, there are some additional areas where the system will assist with that. If an individual puts something under 4, number 1, alien registration number, they start putting something in there, and then they go out and go, no, I'm going to put and I'm using this as an example, my Form I-94 admission number, and they start entering something into there, that will automatically then go back up to number 1 and put NA in there. Obviously, if you're not using the fillable form, those things automatically don't appear. That employee would need to put NA in those blocks that they are not using. You see down toward the bottom, There's still the employee signature and the date. Yes, even if you're filling it out on the fillable form, it still has to be printed off, and the employee still needs to sign, and they need to put the today's date. You see the comment all the way at the bottom. Remember, the employee needs to complete those two subsections of Section 1, the previous slide, the employee information, and this attestation section, no later than the first day they start working for pay. But you can complete an I-9 on an employee before they start working for pay. But what's the key? You've offered them employment, and they've accepted that job. So anytime from that date, but no later than the first day they start working for pay, you can complete the I-9. I know that's a mouthful. Let me give you an example. Troy calls and offers me a position, and let's say in this example, I live in Indianapolis. Calls and offers me a job on 15 November, and I accept the job. But he says, Dave, for payroll purposes, we're not going to have you start working for pay until 1 December. I go, okay, well, here today on the 29th of November, I bounce into Troy's office. While I'm in there, Troy says, hey, Dave, how would you like to fill out some of your onboarding paperwork? Maybe the I-9 is one of those forms. Can we fill it out today? I don't start working until 1 December. Yes, we can. Why? Because I was offered and accepted employment back on the 15th. So you can complete that. For those of you that are saying, hold on, Dave, I thought we had 3 days to complete the I-9. We'll talk about Section 2 in a second. But we're talking about Section 1. So make sure that Section 1 is completed no later than the first day they start working for pay. The bottom of page 1, there's still the Prepare Translator Certification block. The only major change in that is on the, whether you print it off or the fillable form, underneath the title where it says Prepare Translator Certification, there's 2 new blocks. There's a block on the left that you would check off you did not use a Prepare Translator, and there's a block right to the right where it says, yes, you did use a Prepare Translator. If you're using the fillable form and you check off, yes, you did, there's a drop down where it's going to provide numbers. If you check, yes, I did use a Prepare Translator, you hit the drop down, it's going to say, well, did you use 1 or 2 or 3? You might say, what do you mean 1 or 2 or 3? You know, you could use a different preparer versus a different person be the translator. In that example, you would hit 2. Maybe you had 2 different people help prepare the I-9. Maybe that day I showed up to complete the I-9 at Troy's company. I had hurt my hand the evening before. I asked Troy, hey, I'll tell you what to write in Section 1. Will you write that for me? And Troy starts doing that. But a minute into that, he gets called away into a meeting, and maybe somebody else steps in and completes Section 1. That means there's a second preparer. So you would hit 2 there. By hitting 2, it will generate an additional block, Prepare Translator block, to be filled out for that additional individual. Now you might say, that's great, Dave, for those using the fillable. Well, what about us that are still using this pen to paper? You can still print off another page 1 to use the bottom of that block down there for a different preparer or translator. At the bottom of page 1, and we are working to put the screenshot in future presentations on this, you will see where there's a button where you would click to finish that page. When it clicks, what it does is it's checking all the entries that we're putting on that first page. Remember that example where I told you, hey, if they didn't put their birth date up there in the right format, maybe they just put 09/22 for September 22, didn't put their birth year. It's not going to let you to go on the second page until that block is fixed in the correct format. Additionally, if individuals did not put NA in blocks there in Section 1, they left it blank, it's going to note that. And individuals will have to go back up and correct that. So you see how it's really helping you and the employee to ensure that the format is completed correctly on the I-9. Let's go ahead and look at the second page here. Still Section 2 and Section 3. Section 2, still at the top, last name, first name, middle initial. But off to the right of that middle initial is a new block. And that block, and I know it's a little bit smaller here, it is citizenship/immigration status. Meaning, if you're filling this out fillable, And the individual, when the employee sat down and they filled out fillable that first page, and you know they're in the employee attestation, let's say for this example they checked off number 1, which is a citizen of the United States. Once you get to page 2 and they had checked off that they were a citizen of the United States, which is number 1 under that attestation field, it will self-populate a number 1 over here. They checked off that they were an alien authorized to work, that number 4 there in the attestation, a number 4 will appear here. Now you might say, well Dave, wonder if I'm just filling it out pen to paper. Well, then you, the employer, will need to put that corresponding number there. There's still list A, B, and C documents. You see that there's still those helper texts right there if you're using the fillable form. I will tell you that if you're using the fillable form, underneath list A, B, or C, that first line is called document title, you know, where you list if they provide a, let's say, a passport. Well, under list A, under the document title, you probably enter U.S. passport, right? Well, there's a drop down there if you're filling out the fillable form where you can then hit the document that they presented. Same thing goes for B or C. Obviously, if you're not using the fillable form, you have to handwrite that in. Look in the middle of the form there. It's kind of shaded in light blue. That is a new block. We call that the additional instructions or comments, if you will. We got so many comments, if you will, from the public and others of going, you know, wish there was an area that employers could write some comments or some instruction information on the I-9 versus if something was corrected and they want to say why, or maybe they had received a receipt and they didn't want to write stuff in the margin or over on the side, top, bottom. Hey, we've provided an area there for you now. You still see there's that block on the right-hand side. You don't have to put anything in there, meaning any kind of QR code. You don't have to if you're not using such systems. We still have down at the bottom where you will enter in the date that they start working for pay, and the employer still needs to complete out their bottom section there. You see there's a tab under this all the way at the bottom of that form where you would click to finish. When you hit that button, click to finish on page 2, it's going to review the entries and how you entered that information there on page 2. If you didn't put it in the correct format or didn't put NA in various blocks where it didn't already self-populate, etc., once again, it's going to highlight that with like a reddish colored shade in that block, and you'll need to correct that. Look off to the right-hand side. Remember, Section 2 is still to be completed by you, the employer. That's your baby to complete. Section 2 must be completed no later than 3 business days. Remember, Section 1 needs to be completed no later than the first day the employee starts working for pay. But Section 2, you have 3 business days after they started working for pay to complete it. Let me give you a scenario again because we still are asked this question. If Troy's company is open Monday through Friday and closed on Saturday and Sunday, and I start working for pay on Monday, what day of that week does the I-9 need to be complete to be compliant? And remember, the definition of a completed I-9 is both Section 1 and 2 are completely filled out, signed, and dated. So what day of that week? We have many employers that still say, well, Dave, that's easy. That's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. When the actual answer is Thursday, why? Go back to the comment there on the slide. Must be completed no later than 3 business days after the employee begins working for pay. 3 business days after Monday. That'd be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Let's say I started work on Thursday. Remember, Troy's company's closed on Saturday and Sunday. When would that I-9 need to be complete to be compliant? In this example, it would be Friday, Monday, Tuesday. You'll see those comments on the right-hand side there. Employers must examine original documents, and documents must be unexpired. That's no different than the previous version of the I-9. Hey, examining documents. Let's cover this. We're getting questions even under this revised item about examining documents, etc. Just as we've stated under the previous I-9, we don't require you to be a document expert, but you must. Remember those capital words there, capital letters, must accept a document presented by an employee if it reasonably appears to be 2 things. Does the document look genuine? If you say yes, and it relates to that individual presenting it, and you can say yes to that, then you must accept that document. There's not a live presentation that I don't give where there's a sizable crowd that there's not several people that will raise their hand when I say that and go, hey, Dave, I've had some extensive training on fraudulent documents. And our policy goes up and beyond that by saying A, B, C, X, Y, Z. Remember that number to the Office of Special Counsel I talked about? If your policy goes up and beyond what it says here, where you must accept that document if it looks genuine, relates to the individual, if I was you, I would be picking up that phone and calling the Office of Special Counsel. And as you see at the bottom there, remember the documents have to be original. The only document that doesn't have to be an original that you can accept is a certified copy of a birth certificate. Receipt rules. Okay? Many of you may not have run into a situation completing the I-9 where an individual provides you a receipt. So for those of you that haven't, let's just briefly discuss that real quick. A receipt is basically a receipt an agency has provided an individual until they actually provide them that document that they had either maybe lost, stolen, or got damaged. You can accept those receipts like that. True story, about 2 or 3 years ago, I lost my driver's license. I live in Virginia, and in Virginia, we get our driver's license. It's what's called the DMV, the Division of Motor Vehicles. So I lost my driver's license. I bounced into the DMV. I filled out the form. I paid the $20. The young lady printed off a receipt and said, Mr. Basham, until we mail you your driver's license within the next week, here's a receipt that you can use showing that you have a driver's license. I could have bounced out the DMV that day, went across the street to a restaurant that needed to hire someone to start work immediately. They hired me. I completed the I-9 right there with the employer, and the employer asked for documents, and I wanted to provide them right there on the spot, the receipt for my driver's license, a List B document, and I have my Social Security card on me, a List C. That employer can accept that receipt. But that receipt, look at the comment under number 1 on the slide, is only good for 90 days. Why? Because remember, the receipt is just temporary proof. If I can't show that actual driver's license to that employer 90 days from the day I started working for pay, which is that date there in Section 2 you entered, the employer can terminate me. Now you see there are 2 exceptions to the 90-day rule, which is listed there. And you can't accept, and the rule and the policy right now is you cannot accept a receipt where an individual is providing you a receipt where they've tried to renew their expiring EAD. You can't accept those receipts. But as I stated when we opened up, the new rule that goes into effect January 17th states that you can accept those receipts. But I once again want to reiterate, be looking on I-9 Central. Be looking for any information that I-9 Advantage sends out to you in regards to that. USCIS has stated that they will be putting additional information out. And you see at the bottom, the receipts that are never accepted if employment's going to last less than 3 business days. Copying documents, you can either read this slide block or you can remember this. You make a copy of all the documents that are shown to you, or you don't make any copies at all. It's one or the other. It's not, well, we make a copy of every passport and permanent resident card shown to us, Dave. No, you're not. You're making a copy of 2 specific documents. So make a copy of all documents or don't make any copies at all. You decide where you want to put those copies. We recommend at USCIS that if you're making copies of documents, you keep them with the I-9. That's not a policy. It's a recommendation. Reverification. Yep, Section 3 is still there. You still got to complete Section 3 if you see right there at the bottom, if their temporary employment authorization has expired. I think under this policy, yes, we'll get to that block here in a second. And there's a chart on the next slide that will show you which documents do you have to re-verify and which that you do not. Additionally, and I'm hitting some buttons here. I apologize for that. You can also look at the bottom left-hand side. You can also use Section 3 to update biographical information of an employee. An employee changes their name. They get married, they get divorced, or just otherwise change their name. You may use Section 3 to update that biographical information, that name change. You don't have to, you may. But remember, like anything in the I-9 completion, you need to be uniform. If you use Section 3 to update the biographical information, that name change of that employee, you better do it for every employee changes their name. Now, in regards to Section 3, look there at the top left-hand side. Between now and January 21st, if you need to complete Section 3 on an employee, you can do it on the previous version I-9, Section 3 under the previous version of the I-9, or use Section 3 under this revised I-9, which is basically what I told you about, just using the I-9 in general. But after January 21st, if you need to complete Section 3, it has to be done on this revised I-9. Here's that chart. We added this into our PowerPoint 2 or 3 years ago, which basically assisted employers knowing which documents do I have to re-verify, which ones do I not have to. So you don't have to re-verify. Use Section 3 when U.S. passport, passport card, permanent resident card, List B documents expire. There are 2 exceptions to that permanent resident card. There they are. Remember, you're going to get a copy of this PowerPoint after this session, as Bob had stated. So you're going to have this chart. Keep that chart handy. Making corrections to the I-9. Yes, you can still make corrections. If you need to make a correction to the I-9, the correct way to do it is simply line through the item it needs to be corrected, off to the side, make the correction initial and date. No strikeovers, no whiteout. You might say, well, Dave, we filled out the I-9 under the fillable form, and we printed it off, and we had the individual sign date and whatnot. Now we see an item needs to be corrected. Does that mean we need to go back in and fill out another fillable form? No, you don't. You would just take that form where you would run it off and line through that item needs to be corrected and make the correction. A couple questions that come out of, we still receive out of making corrections. Dave, if we do an audit on I-9s, and maybe Betty had completed Section 2 of the I-9s for several years, Betty's no longer with the company, then if items need to be corrected in Section 2, who can do that? Anybody in the company can make corrections in Section 2. But let me ask you this. Remember I told you a while ago I was going to come back to this. If an item needs to be corrected in Section 1, that employee information, employee attestation areas, who should make those corrections? Well, let me help you here. Who did I tell you completes those sections? The employee. So if the employee, an item needs to be corrected there, you need to bring the employee in and have them make those corrections. Why? If their employment eligibility comes into question and somebody else had made a correction, you don't want them to be able to say, hey, I didn't put that name there. I didn't put that SOCH or date of birth there. Okay? Missing forms. What do you do if you're missing a form? Maybe you're supposed to have one on an individual. Let me give you a scenario. Troy started a company 4 years ago. When he started that company, he hired 10 individuals. Here it is 4 years later, he has the same 10 individuals working for him. He's doing an audit on his I-9s today. He realizes he's missing one, and maybe it's on me. What does he do? Follow me on the slide here. He immediately provides me with that I-9, calls me in, hey, Dave, I can't find your I-9. I know we filled one out, but I need you to fill out Section 1 here today. I fill out Section 1, I sign and date it. And I date it today. You see there on the slide at the bottom comment, don't backdate the I-9. I date it today. I have 3 business days, as the slide says, to be able to provide Troy those List A or B and C documents. Maybe I provide him the documents today. Maybe I have them in my wallet. Troy fills out Section 2. When he fills out Section 2 and he signs and dates it, he's dating, he saw my documents I presented him today. He's not backdating it 4 years ago. But there in that block in Section 2 where he's certifying the date I began working for pay, he is going to put that real date I started working for pay 4 years ago. So what's not being backdated is the date I signed there in Section 1 and the date where Troy signs in Section 2. Now, you might say, no, hold on, Dave. That means if Troy gets an audit, it's going to show that you started working for pay 4 years ago, but you and him filled out the I-9 here today and signed and dated it. That's more than 3 days past the date you started working for pay that you two completed. He's going to get written up. Yeah, he is. But it's not going to be as painful as if he has me or he backdates that and he gets caught. And if you get caught, you're in serious trouble. Remember, these auditors, whether they be with ICE, maybe your internal headquarters, maybe with your DOL, Department of Labor, whoever, they know all the tricks of the trade. They do these audits. And in this scenario, it would be an easy one to catch. Why? Because this version of the I-9, nor the previous version of the I-9, wasn't even in existence 4 years ago. Be very careful on that. All right, let's talk about some storage and retention real quick. Make sure you have that on file for all current employees. We talked about it. Store the I-9s anywhere you want, on-site, off-site. But just make sure if you get a notice of inspection that you're able to provide those I-9s within those 3 days. Make sure that only authorized individuals have access to them. Don't put them in that binder and put them in the break room. And as we state, we recommend if you're making copies that you put those copies with the I-9. Your business decision, we just make that recommendation. Retention. You know, if you have an employee that's still working for you and you hired them after November 6, 1986, and they're still working for you, you have to have an I-9 on file. But what do you do with those I-9s once an individual leaves? They quit or you fired them. Well, here's the format right here. You need to retain that I-9 for either 3 years after the date you hired an employee, looking at the screen here, or 1 year after the date the employee terminates, whichever is latter. I know that's a mouthful. So look at this. Look at the example. Troy hired John on November 1st, 2014, and he fired him on July 5th, 2016. So how long would Troy need to retain that I-9 on John? He would pull out that I-9 on John. He would see there in Section 2 the date he started working for pay was November 1st, 2014. He would add 3 years to that date, put that date off to the side. He would then take the date that he terminated him, he fired him, which was July 5th, 2016. He'd add 1 year to that date, put that date off to the side. Which of two of those dates are latter in this example, November 1st, 2017? That's how long he needs to retain the I-9. What do you do with the I-9 after that? The M274 doesn't tell you. All it tells you is you must keep that I-9 up to that date. Let's look at some resources, and I'm going to turn it back over to Sathab real quick. I-9 Central, available in English and Spanish. Remember, you're going to get a copy of this. We talked about the multimedia resources. They're currently being updated on I-9 Central. Remember, they're vignettes, 2-3 minute clips, I told you. Hey, how do we complete Section 1? How'd Dave say that? You can click on Section 1 on our site. Same thing with our webinar on demand. I'm with Outreach. There's about 12 to 15 of us that are around the country, either here in Washington, D.C., Lincoln, Nebraska, or Los Angeles. We do these presentations free, whether they be webinar or if you would like us to speak at your conference or seminar, all you'd have to do is reach out to us in regards to that. We pay for the travel, the entire funding. Customer service, hey, look at that employer hotline number. Up and beyond, if you have questions and you can call I-9 Central, we have a hotline number right off the bat, 888-464-4218, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Any question on the I-9 E-Verify. Ladies and gentlemen, this is simply just a disclaimer. This was simply meant as an informational and an instructional session on this newly revised I-9. No way I can describe everything. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and turn it right back over to Sathab so we can continue on with some information and the Q&As.
And Dave, thank you so much for that useful and detailed information. We are very grateful for your knowledge of the new Form I-9 and appreciate you taking the time to share that. We're going to take a couple of moments now to talk about I-9 Advantage's 100% cloud-based Form I-9 and E-Verify solutions. As you can see on our screen, we have 3 products that we offer. All of these meet the next generation of compliance software. We begin with I-9 Advantage, which creates and securely stores flawless I-9s. We also have I-9 Medic, which digitally converts and corrects paper I-9s. And finally, we have the mobile-enabled remote hiring solution that we offer to clients, particularly those in industries that find themselves frequently hiring employees remotely. If they are placed at client sites, if they're working at different offices, if they're unable to come to a brick-and-mortar location to complete their Form I-9. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about our solutions. We'll go into them in detail, but our solutions are continuously evolving. We design them in such a way that they meet the needs of our clients and our partners. We offer these easy-to-use, flexible, and really compliant solutions that meet federal regulations and for Form I-9 and E-Verify, and we're constantly keeping atop and informed of immigration laws, changes, federal regulation, and modifications, as is the case with the new Form I-9. And we make certain, of course, that our software, our electronic solutions, mirror the intentions and the policies that are issued by USCIS. So some of the innovative features that our software provides is walk-up usability. Our system is easy to use, it's intuitive, it makes everyone an I-9 expert. It also increases efficiency and productivity. Our software solutions reduce the time spent processing Form I-9 by up to 75%. We also integrate with HR platforms. We design our system in such a way that our IT department works to integrate with a number of different HR platforms that companies use. And finally, we have instant E-Verify submission. Our E-Verify solution is integrated with our software program to make it easy for users to access. And finally, of course, we offer 100% paperless solutions. You may complete the Form I-9 via desktop, laptop, tablet, or smartphone. Our first product, as I discussed briefly, is I-9 Advantage. We do emphasize that anyone can become an I-9 expert. Here's how this is done. You can create error-proof I-9s to eliminate the risk of government fines by using our software's precise data validation and error checking features. We streamline your I-9 process to reduce the risk of employee discrimination with a standardized process. We also maintain the most up-to-date and compliant software by working closely with the Department of Homeland Security, with E-Verify, with program analysts, and our software development team, as well as our legal team, stays ahead of ever-changing regulations. So seamless integration, single sign-on features, digital I-9 storage and printing, and finally, eliminating missed deadlines. All of these features combined offer a flawless I-9 every time. Restoring the health of your I-9s. For those of our clients who have legacy I-9s, existing paper I-9s, we have features that allow you to correct your paper I-9s and store them as well. There is attempting to self-correct archived Form I-9s often increases your risk of fines, and that is something that employees or employers rather should look to avoid. I-9 Medic, on the other hand, eliminates that risk of human error, and the preparation time for an audit is reduced from weeks to minutes. Finally, compliantly correcting error-filled I-9s by precisely catching errors followed by step-by-step correction guidance is very helpful to employers, and reduces your time of auditing and reviewing I-9s, and ensures, of course, that the process is done compliantly. We offer a real-time dashboard that allows approved administrators to monitor the correction process for multiple accounts, users, and locations. We have data security that protects the integrity of your data by exceeding the most stringent federal security requirements. We also have forensic quality audit trails. This automatically secures, stores, and provides easy search for quick retrieval and printing of Form I-9s. It also prints an audit trail so that employers can quickly identify who accessed the Form I-9 and what actions were taken with regard to the integrity of the I-9, when it was created, when it was signed, who accessed it, and what changes were made. Finally, we offer an exhaustive error checking feature. It precisely catches errors with our 185-point error checking algorithm. It is supported by a 20-tier validation system. Our remote hiring feature offers confidence of compliance from any location. So 100% paperless and mobile-enabled solution. I-9 Remote reduces the processing time of Form I-9s from days to minutes. It allows the use of an authorized agent or one of 12,500 trained notaries available across the country. And we offer other authorized agent solutions in addition to the notary network. Notaries are trained on the I-9 remote system. They're proficient in accurately completing the Form I-9, and they will travel to your location to meet your new hire and complete the form in a timely manner. The remote solution offers a technologically savvy feature. It completes your remote I-9s via tablet, smartphone, and computer with the fastest mobile solution on the market. The notary network, as I mentioned, is very flexible. It offers 2 different agent options, using an employer or an employee designated agent, or access our nationwide notary network, or a brick and mortar I-9 completion center. You can choose which method works best for your company, what meets your business model, and ensures that, of course, that it is easy and efficient for your company. The digital signature options. There is an option to sign the Form I-9 using a mouse, a stylus, or your finger if you're using a tablet. You may also elect to use the click to sign to attest that information is completed accurately. And finally, the smart document upload allows new hires to capture secure images of Section 2 documents with any mobile device, including a camera, and they can update or rather upload those immediately. So with that said, we'd like to thank all of our attendees for joining us today. We'd also like to thank Dave Basham of USCIS for sharing his knowledge of and the government's policy on the use of the new Form I-9. With that, we thank you all. We hope you'll have a great day. If you have any questions or would like to reach out to us at I-9 Advantage, you can see the information here. Our telephone number is 800-724-8546. And you may reach out to our sales staff at sales@i9advantage.com. If you have any questions, i9advantage.com as well. We'll offer you more details about our software, our electronic I-9 solutions, and ways in which we can help your company become more efficient and compliant with regard to the Form I-9. Have a great day, everyone.